Phase 3 OTAs are in the book for the Kansas City Chiefs, and there's new guys in new places today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom. It is another Red Friday as we get prepared for week 2 of Phase 3 OTAs. There's a couple of changes going on in Kansas City and a couple of questions as well. We're going to get to them all. He's Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner. We're going to get quarterback stats, cap, finance, the whole 9 yards that you can cover over there. Get subbed over at Chiefs Corner, and then come join me at NFL33.com, where I run down the rest of the league. Look at RGR Football, where we do film and all kinds of Chiefs-related content, and you can get all the athleticism at rogueapc.com. You can find us on our outlets. We appreciate you joining us today here on the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every single day, starting here on YouTube, where you can like and sub and hit the bell, and going out to Spotify and Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can get a free podcast, you can get us 5 days a week plus. And if you want that much more, you can get a little bit more over at the Insider text line at 816-357-8781. That is our local line, and we appreciate you guys. You locals are here every single day, and that's what we're here for. So let's get after it today. Will Trent McDuffie stay put? Will he play in the nickel? What's going to happen? That's coming up later in the show. Who is the new juice? What's going on, and who's bringing the energy both to practice as well as to game day? And we start with what looks like a number of different changes going on, particularly in the defensive backfield with the safety group. The number one thing that stood out to me as we heard about what's going on in practice is that Jaden Hicks is going to be kind of all over the place. Chamarri Connor is now lining up everywhere, much like we saw last season. I thought they might try to put him in a single role, but he's going to be nickel. He's going to be robber. He's going to be in the box. He's going to be high. Chamarri Connor is the Swiss Army knife right now that they're trying to groom to follow after and complement both Jaden Hicks low and Brian Cook high. And I think that's exactly what they ought to be doing. I think robber is probably the place that I like him the best. What about you?
I think it's just interesting that they're going to be using 4 safeties as much as they're going to be using 4 safeties this year, because there is going to be a time when I think you may see all 4 of those guys on the field at the same time, just because of the different roles that they could be having for the Chiefs this year. And that's what's exciting, because you bring in a guy like Jaden Hicks, who is well-built as an athlete and is going to bring the hammer as a hitter. That's going to help you on defense. And, you saw what Chamarri Connor was able to bring last year. He was in the right place most of the time, and getting Brian Cook back, and then obviously Justin Reed. I mean, that's a huge combination, having all those guys.
It certainly is. And Chamarri's no slouch in bringing the lumber either. But what stands out to me in looking at this is it feels like it's a preparation for not necessarily a team, but the one that stands out to me is one that Patrick's kind of got his eye on as well. It's going to be a 1-2 punch at the tight end position from the Las Vegas Raiders. We're trying to chase the Chiefs and maybe try to capitalize on that Christmas Day game. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but you're going to see back-to-back major tight end acquisitions in last year's draft, and now Brock Bowers, who can line up pretty much anywhere. And that's why I think the versatility of the safety group is going to be paramount, because you can't just go at one of them with Jaden Hicks. Not the most fleet of foot. Chamarri's going to give you a little bit better acceleration. Brian Cook's going to give you a little bit better acceleration, but it's matching up on the tight ends. And I feel like this is the key for this particular matchup later in the season, is that you can have Reed come down. He's played tight ends well before. You can have Hicks comes down. He's played physical against tight ends as well. The turn and run aspect still allows you to have 2 high, but guys you feel you can muscle against tight ends in this division, I think that's going to be important coming down the stretch.
Well, you talk about this division, I'll throw it out there and I'll say that it's not just the division. It's also, look at the first week of the season against the Baltimore Ravens, who love multiple tight end sets. And you have another game later in the season against Buffalo, who has 2 very good tight ends, assuming they're going to both be healthy. So, sorry, I'm still getting over a cold. I apologize. You look at this, and it's just a situation where Kansas City is going to be in a great spot. I mean, they have 4 guys that they're going to be comfortable with having out there. We already know what Spags was doing with Hicks during the rookie camp. We don't know really what he did with him during the OTAs, but you have to imagine that we're going to get a lot more reports once training camp kicks off in July about how he's working with those DBs, how he's working with that group. and how Merritt is working with that group as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see.
And I think the key here is to be interchangeable, to fit pieces into a puzzle, right? Of all the skills that you need. We've seen Justin Reed play high, especially in split safety looks with open middle of the field. We've seen Brian Cook do that. We've also seen both of them come down into the box, not necessarily at the line of scrimmage in a true linebacker set, although every now and then you'll see that. But both of them can be box safeties just a little bit off of the line of scrimmage. I think Hicks can take that next step farther and actually get down to the line and actually come in contact right at the snap, redirect the tight ends, try to disrupt the routes. I think that's a great use case. And then you have Chamarri that can float over the top, Deion Bush that can play an open safety spot all over the field. It's a nice versatility. They always talk about building, wide receiver groups as basketball teams, but this safety group truly is somebody that can play power ball, can play three-point line, can do it all. And I think that versatility is going to come into every single game plan, but especially all the games that you just mentioned.
Well, and you talk about safety as kind of like what we talked about in defensive line to an extent with an offensive line for that matter. Its versatility is what can you bring to the team? What can you do? And this is another example of Kansas City looking at that position and saying, okay, we have this. What can they do that is going to get us, more effect on the field, and what is going to be more effective for us on the field? So to me, I think this is a great move. They have it at the defensive line position with Chris Jones and Charles Omenihu and Mike Dana, in and out. You have it with Drew Tranquill too, to an extent, who can play all three of the linebacker positions. Schnell and Bolton are going to be basically those guys that are going to be playing their normal positions most of the time. But you're in a situation where you have a lot of different versatile players here. And you talk about Hicks. Hicks could come down and play linebacker at some point. I'm not saying it's going to be a regular basis, but that's definitely something he has the ability to do.
I think how he meshes gives you the versatility that you're looking for. And I like one particular pair in particular for that usage. It won't be used every week, but there's a lot of room there. It also happens to contain the guy who's bringing the juice now that Willie Gay is off and playing down in Etouffee-land down in New Orleans. It is Drew Tranquill that is ratcheting up the energy. They're going to need that. What does that look like for this defense? Coming up next on the Locked On Podcast Network. Passion, drive, patience. It brings the trophy home, just like the Chiefs have. And it can also affect your main vehicle, your ride or die. eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain that vehicle, give it its peak performance, as well as over-the-top superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, everything to make it speedy, powerful, and stylish, all at eBay Motors, because they have you covered. Over 122 million parts for your or die, and you'll always find exactly what you're looking for because eBay has a guaranteed fit. Your part will fit your ride every single time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're not burning cash. You're burning rubber. At least you're trying to. With all the parts that you need and the pieces that you want, it's easy to turn your car into an MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. Guaranteed fit is available for U.S. customers only. If you are tired of all the shouting on Fox Sports and ESPN that's on your TV all day long, you can get dedicated streaming programming on Locked On Sports today. Can't miss analysis, opinions, and guys that cover their team in depth 24/7 every single day. It's available on YouTube where you can like, sub, and hit the bell now, as well as the Amazon Fire TV channels app. That is a freebie, so go get that. It's part of Locked On Podcast Network. Go check it out today. I'm checking out how you get back up for given opponent X, Y, or Z when the guy who used to do all the bolstering of your energy levels was Willie Gay. And now he's out there. It just so happens that there's the guy stepping up into it that happens to play the same position. And Drew Tranquill is taking it to the next level. He's a guy that's been very energetic since he signed a one-year deal last year. Now he's back on an extended contract. And I like the fact that it's staying at the position group in the middle of the field so you can affect everyone, whether it's in the huddle or just moving around. In particular, like you were talking with Hicks, that's a pairing that I can see Tranquill and Hicks getting some time on the field together this season, just the two of them down low, and I like it.
Yeah, and there's lots of different ways that this this defense can go. I think that you look at Hicks, you look at Tranquil, and you start talking about the juice guy and Tranquil, you see how much passion he has for this city, how much passion he has for this team after coming here and getting the Super Bowl that he's been chasing his entire career. Now he has a long-term deal with Kansas City. He'll be here for several more years and is going to be playing next to Bolton, I think, for the foreseeable future. That's exciting to see. And I do think that when you look at what Tranquil can do, what he can bring, and how much he likes to be vocal, and he's even pushing that even further now. I think that's going to be great for Kansas City because you have a guy in Bolton who is by far one of the core leaders on this team. The team fully feels like he is one of those guys that is their leader, and if he wouldn't have been injured most of the year, I think he would have been one of those guys that would have been the team captain at that position last year, or on this team last year for defense. But you sit here and you look at it, and Bolton is not that high energy. Bolton is not that type of leader that is going to be in your face and screaming and loud. He knows his job. He knows what people are supposed to be doing. And I'm not saying he won't get in their face, but that's not his style of leadership. He's not the hoorah. He's not the big flamboyant leader that Willie Gay was, or Willie Gay could be.
I agree, and the energy level is one thing. Having the recognition of how you play on the field is another. To take that and reinforce it and be able to lead. I think another interesting aspect, and we just heard about this today, is that it all comes down to how you fit in and what is a very complex and difficult and challenging defense to learn. And so for Hicks that we talked about in the first, I think he's going to have to spend some time with your Tranquil and Nick Bolton, especially if he's going to be on the field in some 3 safety, 4 safety situations. But it's also interesting to me that Justin Reed now wants to challenge Drew Tranquil, who is the team's designated chess master, to some chess matches, because Justin's a pretty knowledgeable dude too, and evidently plays a lot. I think it's him and Tooney and Tranquil. Having 2 of the guys that are core to the middle of the defense, the vertical part, I think is a giveaway of how this defense works.
Actually, I think Justin actually just won the chess championship, $25,000 to his charity. So that'll be fun to see. And it's great because those guys love competing against each other. So it's always a lot of fun. And these, there are so many things that go on in that locker room, and you could just tell that these guys are getting along. They get along great together. They are all challenging each other. There might be some crap talking, but that's part of football. That's part of what is going to happen on the football field, but they all know what they're chasing. And you look at everybody that's been on this team for the past 2 or 3 years, and really you go back to, and we're going to talk about him in a minute, you go back to Trent McDuffie's draft class and Brian Cook's draft class. You look at that group that's been here for those 2 years, and now they're going into their 3rd year, and anybody else that came in that time frame, they know what this roster is about. They know how this is going to work this season, and they know what to expect. So they're going to be attacking. They're going to be doing everything they can to get better, and their teammates are going to know that they're not trying to take cheap shots, or they're not trying to make them look bad. They're trying to do the best that they can to be better for themselves and be better on both sides of the ball. That's the important thing that you have to know as a teammate on this team, is that they are driving for the 3-peat, and it is all hands on deck for it right now.
And I think that's where the chess comes back into it, in having guys that play down the middle of the field that have that experience, yes, but also the mental acumen to calculate all those things and all the possibilities,
the intelligence,
where you could get attacked next. I think that's how you plan and how you get back to a 3-peat. But there is another single aspect, because you can't get back to a 3-peat if you can't take away other teams' weapons. What will Trent McDuffie do this season? Where will we see him align? Some hints coming after this here on the Locked On Podcast Network.
When it comes to your financial future, you think you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested all that you can. Now you need to take those investments to the next level by using what every financial great uses, Yahoo Finance. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or are looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and the data you need in one place. They're the #1 finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and it's how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the insight to look at your wealth in its entirety. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand that behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. That's the number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com.
Locked On Sports Today is the feed that you're looking for, so you don't have to watch the major networks. It's 24/7. It's on your team every single day. And check it out at Amazon Fire TV and here on YouTube. Big question is with the departure of L'Jarius Sneed is how they choose to align.
I was just going to say, you mentioned Amazon Fire. We're also on Amazon Music, although it's not working right now. We did get people that were asking questions on the YouTube channel. We are there. Be looking for us. We will be back as soon as they get us fixed. Just wanted to mention that again because people are asking. Trent McDuffie is going to be a lot of fun to watch this season, and I don't even know where to start when it comes to Trent McDuffie.
And I think that's the key. I don't think coordinators know where to start either. And luckily, at least right now, he said yesterday, hey, I'll go outside. I'm comfortable being out there. I can stay in the nickel. I'm comfortable being there. It really allows not only for right now when you're evaluating other talent, for you to leave the door open for Najee Johnson, Nick Jones, even Chamarri Conner to play inside. Obviously, there's a slew of young guys that can play outside. So that leaves you versatility as a coordinator, as a coach, as a teammate. But it also leaves the fact that on any given matchup, and maybe it is back to these Raiders. I guess I have Raiders on the brain this week. Maybe you choose to just go put them on Devontae Adams and let the linebackers and the safeties handle the tight ends and not worry about it. Because, yes, there's a height disadvantage, there's a length disadvantage. Trent McDuffie makes plays. And in the end, I don't think any of those disadvantages end up adding up to a loss or an embarrassing day in any way. And I think now the shift from L'Jarius Sneed to Trent McDuffie is about being anywhere he needs to be to take away weapons from the opposing offense.
So it's interesting because we actually had a subtext question on whether or not we think that Trent McDuffie will travel with Jamar Chase in week 2. I am going to go out on a limb and say, at least, and this is my response on subtext, was I don't think so in week 2. Is it possible if they play him again in the playoffs that he's traveling at that point? Yeah, maybe. But I think that Spagnuolo is going to try to figure out what he has on this defense. And what you mentioned before is you've got a slew of guys that can be outside and you've got a slew of guys that can play inside. So you have guys that can do all that. But the problem with traveling, and this is what you deal with every year when you have a CB travel with the receiver, is that you have to have guys that are going to be fundamentally sound and know exactly where they're supposed to be, because their assignments could change based on where the wide receiver lines up. So it's key early to make sure everybody's on the same page. So I don't know that he'll be traveling early. Maybe he will travel late. Maybe he won't travel this year. That's going to be something to watch. But it is interesting because you sit there and you look at what he has been able to do so far in his career, and he is going to be a player that is going to haunt offenses all next season, I believe. I think he's going to have a very big year. The question I have is, if he doesn't travel, is he still going to be good enough to do what the Chiefs need him to do? I think he will. But the other thing, when you start looking at the McDuffie thing, is, you saw what Matt Derrick asked him. It's, do you want that type of competition? And he said, do I have to? No. Do I want to? Absolutely. He wants that. He wants to go against that guy every week. So maybe it is something that they do. I just don't know it's going to start early in the season, but it wouldn't shock me if it happens at some point next year.
You bring up a good point. There's no such thing as a team that has a corner that travels. Because when you do travel, and folks, by traveling, if you haven't been with us before, we've been covering this team for going on 8 years, and sometimes I forget that we've talked about terms maybe you haven't heard before. Traveling means that you take away the number one receiver with your best cornerback, and you put him all over the field. He travels all over the field wherever he needs to go. But the flip side of that is that you have to have somebody that can also compensate, or a couple of guys that can compensate, depending on where he has to go to. So it is a group mentality, and it's good to see that not only there are options on inside of the nickel, but on the outside. Kelvin Joseph just came up with a pick. Mahomes was even giving him some credit in there. A guy that's like 4th, 5th depth chart wise, making some plays early in OTAs. Anybody that can stand up and make themselves known in order to allow more versatility opposite or away from Trent McDuffie is what will make the difference. And I think when we see that, that's just all about putting your best player in position to do it. It started, I think, a while ago. And I will go all the way back to Honey Badger passing his attitude and his versatility and his desire to compete against the best down to L'Jarius Sneed. L'Jarius Sneed demonstrating that, now passing that down to Trent McDuffie. You could see how the evolution of the franchise trickles down to what are the modern day players. And that's something they can bank on year after year after year.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, when you sit here and you look at what this is going to be, and there's been variations. You talk about traveling, and you laid it out very good, but there's also been another variation, which Belichick used several years ago when he had Stephon Gilmore as his corner, where he would have the number 1 corner travel with the number 2 wide receiver, and then he'd double the number 1. There's lots of different ways to do it, but the importance is, and as you pointed out, you have to have the entire back end of the defense know that what their assignment is and know how it's going to change if somebody is going to be traveling. So it is very important. And that's why I don't know that it'll happen early, but with Spagnuolo getting in with these safeties as early as rookie camp. And I mean, he's done that now, 3 years in a row, because he did it with Cook. He did it with Chamarri Connor, and now he's doing it with Hicks. I mean, all 3 of those guys are getting extra stuff from Steve Spagnuolo. Maybe it's a situation where they're going to feel comfortable enough to say, okay, McDuffie, you go get Jamar Chase. Okay, McDuffie, you go get Zay Flowers. Maybe that's the direction they go. We'll see. It's going to be interesting to watch, and I do think McDuffie is going to be up for the challenge. It's going to be a fun season because you look at what these corners bring. You look at all the different things that are going to happen between now and when the season kicks off. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I will tell you this, like, we don't see a ton in OTAs because the media is only allowed in 1 day out of the week. So we don't get a ton of information in OTAs. Wait till we get to training camp, because that's where you're really going to see the fun start. When you start getting into the wide receiver and corner drills, and you got some of these wide receivers going up against some of the corners, because you got guys that have been in the league on both sides. Brown has been in the league for a while. McDuffie's now in his 3rd year. You've got other guys that have been here for 3 years as well, or going into their 3rd year as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see how they go and how they fight in these drills. And I don't mean fight literally, but you're going to have that fire. You're going to have it. I mean, you have to have that to play in this defense.
Yeah, there's no way around it. And it all comes together on the culmination in the postseason so that you can do what you need to do to get W's. However thin that margin has to be, that's what it has to be. Well, this is all the fodder that gets you there. So it may seem like it's not terribly directly producing details or outcomes, but it will pay off. This is the bricklaying on the foundation that will lead towards another championship.
Well, and let's not forget, when we go back and we talk about the draft class that McDuffie came in, and anybody that's added to the team that year, they played 20 games. Last year, they played 21 games because they didn't get a bye week. Now they're going to be going into another season where if they get to the Super Bowl, it's at least another 20 games, if not 21. So that takes a lot of wear and tear. You're going to need the entire team. You're going to need the entire roster. You're talking about a guy like Kelvin Joseph, who likely isn't probably going to be on the roster. He has a ton of talent. He was drafted in the 2nd round, but he's got a long shot to make the roster at this point. Look at the talent that they have at that position. And he's going to have to fight like crazy just to have a chance to make this roster. Corner is going to be a fun position to watch, and it's going to make the wide receivers better.
Yeah, and it has to. That will in turn make the offense better and lift everything up. So the question is, what happens next week? Full slate of practices next week. We're going to give you an early look starting on Monday, and get ready because it's going to ratchet up yet another step.
I should have said this with the safety talk, but how much fun is it going to be to see Kelsey and Wiley and Gray go against the safety group?
Yeah, there's going to be some
Those
good battles in there.
It's going to be a lot of fun to see at training camp this year because Justin Reed and Travis Kelce, so many videos last year of them going one-on-one and them Kelce talking to Reed afterwards, Reed talking to Kelce afterwards. They are all just pushing each other, and that's what you want to see right now.
It's what you got to have for the three-peat, folks. That's what they're focused on. That's what we're focused on. We appreciate you being with us to be focused on it. Make sure to like, sub, and hit the bell here on YouTube. Subscribe on the audio platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you like to get podcasts. You can find us 5 days a week. We appreciate you hanging out with us and being here. Make sure that you are ready for the coming week. And if you want that much more, get on the text line at 816-357-8781. Enjoy your holiday week, and we'll be back with you getting ready for the next phase of OTAs. Thanks for listening today.